An ancient manuscript that had remained concealed from humanity for nearly 2 millennia was inadvertently uncovered in 1945 in a startling archaeological discovery. A young Egyptian farmer's son, foraging for natural fertilizers, stumbled upon an entombed, long-forgotten gravesite containing 13 sealed clay jars. Among the contents exhumed from this burial site were several remarkably well-preserved ancient papyrus manuscripts, and one of these turned out to be a complete transcription of a powerful sacred text known as the Gospel of Thomas. This work predates the written canonical Bible that most are familiar with by several centuries, and contains a collection of metaphysical teachings originally imparted by Jesus Christ himself to his closest inner circle of disciples. However, due to the text being suppressed so thoroughly and effectively over the ages, the vast majority of people throughout history had remained completely unaware of its existence and the profound spiritual wisdom it contained. The Gospel of Thomas had been meticulously safeguarded over the centuries by an ancient esoteric spiritual group known as the Gnostics, whose name was derived from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge or insight. To the Gnostics, Jesus was revered as an enlightened, celestially empowered being who had taken a human form in order to descend to earth and liberate humanity from its bondage to the attachments, fears, and illusions associated with the transient physical world by imparting liberating metaphysical knowledge and techniques to awaken the slumbering human psyche and soul to its own innate, infinite, divine creative power and potential. The Gnostics believed that the sacred truths contained within the Gospel of Thomas had been intentionally omitted from the various Gospels and texts that were compiled together much later to comprise the written canonical Bible endorsed by the mainstream Christian Church in its formative stages. The Gnostics taught that the concealed metaphysical manifesting techniques and revelations contained in this text enabled individuals focused on attaining spiritual illumination to accelerate their progress by employing advanced mental power strategies to tap into and directly access the transcendent unified field of infinite potential from which all creation arises and manifests into material form. With this long-suppressed gospel now resurfaced back into awareness, it has once again become possible for spiritually inclined individuals of the modern era to study and embrace the path of metaphysical manifestation and conscious reality creation through the application of Jesus' original transformative wisdom teachings. At the core of these teachings is the eternal principle of reshaping one's personal world and experience in alignment with one's innermost heartfelt desires through the metaphysical law of attraction, by cultivating a profound state of inner harmony and coherence between all aspects of one's psyche. The intellect, thoughts, emotions, feelings, physical sensations, intuitions, and even one's interactions with the outside world of form and matter. The underlying premise is that by systematically unifying all of these components of consciousness into a singularly focused totality, the aspirant establishes a resonant energetic connection to the infinitely vast and eternal unified field of cosmic consciousness that permeates all of existence. It is from this transcendent level of fundamental awareness that all dimensional planes of reality simultaneously arise as projections of variable frequency oscillations and fluctuations of energy and information into the kaleidoscopic phenomenal world that we experience as objective physicality. The Gospel of Thomas emphasizes that on the deepest level, all elements of our being, the thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions, and external circumstances and material objects we encounter are intrinsically interconnected as coordinated manifestations of this single underlying universal consciousness. While most humans are conditioned to perceive reality through the limited lens of separation and division, the reality is that everything arises as aspects of one cohesive, holistic oneness. This means that like waves of energy rippling outwards across time and space, the thoughts we entertain in our minds, the emotions we experience in our hearts, and even the micro-movements of our physical bodies create fluctuations and disturbances in the quantum unified field, from which the component elements of our personal reality are continually crystallizing into form. These magnetic resonance patterns that we emanate from our consciousness act as guiding frequencies calling forth and attracting into our personal experience the exteriorized manifestations of corresponding correlations on every level, whether in the form of material objects, relationship dynamics, career opportunities, financial flows, or any other conceivable circumstances. Often, individuals become painfully aware of the influence their mindsets and emotional patterns exert over their external reality, though they generally don't realize the mechanics of how this metaphysical dynamic actually operates. For example, those who habitually nurture joy, satisfaction, and confidence within themselves typically find that their personal affairs become increasingly filled with positive synchronicities, new opportunities, and favorable outcomes, with an ever-increasing flow of beneficial circumstances reflecting the energetic currents of their internal orientation. Simultaneously, those who chronically fixate on feelings of insecurity, deprivation, and fear tend to experience escalating hardships, losses, and setbacks, as their resonance acts like a beacon, sending out recurring pulses of scarcity and lack that match and materialize those very patterns in their objective life conditions. This metaphysical mechanism is an expression of the immutable universal law of attraction that governs all energy dynamics that shape the manifesting of matter and the emergence of events and sequential occurrences across timelines. It operates by harmonizing and arranging the convergence of corresponding frequencies and oscillations through a process of tuned harmonic resonance. In essence, those who already possess and radiate a certain consistent energetic frequency attract additional correlations of that same frequency to multiply and amplify the pattern. While conversely, those who lack a particular frequency imprint within their consciousness create resonance voids that repel that frequency and deflect it away from drawing into their experience. This self-generating perpetuation of inherent tendencies and patterns is reflected in the ancient maxim that states, "The rich get richer and the poor get poorer." However, the good news is that the Gospel of Thomas illuminates how the seemingly inexorable mechanics of the metaphysical law of attraction are actually malleable and can be positively leveraged and directed by any individual through the power of focused intention, conscious energy work, and transformational shifts in one's mode of awareness. As affirmed by this text, the kingdom of limitless possibilities and infinite potential is perpetually existent across the reality continuum, simultaneously encompassing all times, dimensions, and probable futures. To initiate the process of intentionally manifesting one's desired outcome into tangible personal experience, one must make the profound shift in consciousness to see beyond the confines of the seemingly immutable present circumstances and firmly attune oneself to envisioning the goal as having already been successfully achieved and established in the transcendent real of the eternal, changeless higher dimensions. In essence, one must adopt the perspective of thinking from the end of already firmly occupying the reality in which one's true aspirations have been definitively actualized. From the vantage point of this higher dimensional awareness, the future accomplishments, realities, and experiences that one intends to manifest for themselves become just as tangible and vividly palpable as the conditionally internalized physical perceptions that define one's current viewpoint. By anchoring oneself steadfastly in the unwavering inner conviction and metaphysical certainty that one's heart's longing has already been eternally fulfilled in the infinitely potent universal consciousness, one aligns oneself with and harnesses the cosmic patterns of cyclic momentum and synchronistic orchestration that guide events and converge the necessary components and circumstances to birth that desired outcome into concrete manifestation. This foundational metaphysical principle finds expression across many of the world's ancient esoteric spiritual traditions. In the tantric lineages of Buddhism, this state of consciousness is alluded to in the concept of taking the result as the path, wherein metaphysical adepts visualize and meditate on themselves as already being fully enlightened and unified divine beings. This is not mere blind delusion or dismissal of the logic of objective reality. Rather, it is built on the perceptual realization that the seed of perfection, fulfillment, and illumination already resides within their innermost divine nature and pure consciousness from the outset. The tradition points the sincere practitioner towards cultivating this revelation through deep contemplation of the teachings, and by gazing unblinkingly into the mirror of their soul's innate radiance, until all delusions of impermanence and separation have fallen away under the relentless, penetrating current of self-inquiry. Similarly, in the 20th century renaissance of metaphysical philosophy and spirituality spearheaded by figures like Neville Goddard, this expanded mode of awareness in which one's subconscious mind becomes keenly identified with the intention as already instituted into concrete form across the eternal field of potentiality is referred to as fourth-dimensional thinking, or metaphysical mind power. Neville emphasized that by recognizing and securing your consciousness in a state of unwavering certitude and settled conviction of the intended goal's accomplishment in the transcendent realm of the universal mind, you set into motion synchronized reverberations and resonant frequency ripples of creative power that interact with the malleable substrate of infinite possibilities to accelerate the corresponding manifestation into objectified physical outcome according to your will. To empower this process and most effectively harness the infinite field of potentials, Jesus' teachings in the Gospel of Thomas consistently emphasize the foundational prerequisite that the aspirant must take the initiative to reharmonize and reintegrate the oftentimes segregated aspects of their own mind, psyche, emotions, desires, and physical form into a cohesive, unified totality of clear-focused intentionality. Ordinarily, the thinking mind and conceptual faculties dwell in a state of disconnection and separation from the emotional dimensions of the heart, the intuitive promptings of the spirit essence, and the direct, tangible somatic sensory experience of the physical body vehicle. This compartmentalized psychic interior fragmentation creates inner conflict and dissonance, which acts as an impediment and blockage, constantly draining energy, focus, and penetrating power from the individual's ability to consolidate their consciousness into an intentionally directed stream of energy to shape their personal reality according to their will and aspirations. As affirmed in verse 61 of the Gospel, Jesus states, if one is undivided, he will be filled with light, but if one is divided, he will be filled with darkness. The axiom here is that when the intellectual, emotional, sensory, and spiritual elements of one's being exist in a state of psychic dissociation and disconnection, one experiences a profound inner schism, alienation, and lack of wholeness that disconnects the individual from their divine creative essence. The resulting sense of emptiness, lack of fulfillment, and existential darkness severs the sovereign individual from the transcendent eternal light of infinite consciousness that is their true source of sacred power to intentionally shape their destiny. Conversely, when an individual is able to bring their entire field of consciousness into an integral, unified field of clarity and coherence, they become filled with light, flooded with the radiant brilliance of awakened divine creative power and profound metaphysical illumination. In verse 22, Jesus elaborates on this key by instructing, when you make the two into one, and when you make the inner as the outer, and the above as the below, then shall you enter the kingdom. The unified field of consciousness accessed here is described as that state wherein one attains profound realization of the intrinsic interconnectedness of all elements and levels of being and existence. The artificial separations between spirit and matter, heaven and earth, the external world and the internal psyche, the subconscious and the superconscious, these dualities dissolve into a holistic, unified perception of the cosmos as a singularly interrelated phenomenon arising as a coded harmonic from universal consciousness. This reintegrated state of wholeness within the depths of one's own psyche has the effect of opening a direct channel through which the infinite creative essence at the core of the universe can freely flow into resonant expression of thoughts, feelings, intuitions, behaviors, and manifestations of physical experience. By deconstructing the interior obstacles and contradictions to this unobstructed flow, one awakens to the reality that all elements of their being, along with the exterior objects and circumstances they encounter, are interconnected expressions of the same unified field of consciousness. As a result, by harnessing intention focused coherently through this unified field, one gains the ability to orchestrate resonant creation and attraction of correlated realities and circumstances into their personal sphere of experience. The fundamental connection and interrelation between the human mind and consciousness and all physical forms of matter that modern humanity largely remains oblivious to was not a mystery to the teachers of these ancient metaphysical wisdom streams. They directly perceived the reality that the seemingly objective solidities and boundaries of the exterior world were essentially condensed thought forms, manifestations of consciousness that had coalesced and funneled into temporarily stabilized frequency oscillations and patterns according to the metaphysical structural blueprint imbued into the quantum energetic unified field. Along these lines, the human mind's own capacity to generate thoughts, project mental imagery, form conceptual constructs, and catalyze the firing of neurochemical reactions through emotional processing reveals the immense creative power inherent in consciousness itself. The rippling waves of energy information discharged by the mental and emotional workings of the human psyche impact the underlying malleable unified field of infinite potential, redirecting its flow, rearranging component oscillations, and guiding the manifestations of corresponding experiential realities in intricate and complex patternings across dimensional and temporal scale. In simpler terms, this means that the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and emotional states that human beings nurture from within the depths of their consciousness shaped by repetitive habit are not mere abstracted ephemera that exist only in some isolated inner realm divorced from external tangible reality. In actuality, they possess inherent electromagnetic charge and resonate as archetypally coded energy structures that directly interact with and reform the underlying fabric of existence itself. This means that the joy, confidence, and positive emotional certainty anchored within an individual's energy field regarding a desired end result becomes a coherent energetic transmission that reverberates outward through time and space, drawing in synchronistically aligned events, encounters, and opportunities, and material resources to physically manifest the correlated version of that inner resonance into objective reality. Conversely, the sustainment of emotions of doubt, fear, low self-worth, insecurity, anxiety, or worry within an individual's consciousness transmits discordant energy information disruptions that distort and scatter the unified field's ability to coalesce into desired harmonics, resulting in the generation of externally reflected circumstances matching the inner chaos of those emotional vibrational frequencies. This teaching of the fundamental inseparability of the human consciousness and the outer physical experiential world is central within the Gospel of Thomas. In verses such as verse 5, which states, "Recognize what is in your sight, and that which is hidden from you will become plain to you. For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed." Jesus is affirming the principle that by clearly observing and integrating the spiritual truths reflected symbolically in the objective physical world around us, the corresponding inner revelations and insights regarding higher spiritual realities will also be unveiled within our consciousness. And conversely, by gaining insight into the subtler dimensions of spiritual reality through focused consciousness attunement, intuition, and revelation, we will also develop the perceptual capacity to cognize the deeper energetic currents and formative dynamics at play beneath the surface levels of the apparently physical material universe around us. The verse goes on to say, "For there is nothing hidden that will not become manifest." This serves as a reminder that there are no spiritual truths, insights, or creative intentions that remain perpetually obscured at the deepest level. Eventually, all thoughts, feelings, and held beliefs will come to structural fruition by condensing into corresponding external material formations and circumstances, according to the nature of the vibrational frequencies and emotional charges they carry within the human consciousness and imprint into the malleable, unified field. There is an inevitable process by which the invisible realms of pure potentiality flowing from consciousness inevitably become outwardly manifested into the visible dimensions of embodied objective experiential reality. Verse 8 lays out further advice on this process, asserting, "Imagine the kingdom as a wise fisherman casting his net into the sea, drawing it up full of small fish, among which the wise fisherman finds fine large fish. He chooses the large ones with ease and throws back the small fish into the sea." This poetic metaphor encapsulates the practical instruction to clarify and focus one's intentions towards a singular coherent goal or desired end result. Without this concentrated intentionality, an individual's aspirations and thoughts scatter like disparate wavelengths into chaos and incoherence, resulting in a convoluted stream of miscellaneous external circumstances that seem random and unconnected. This is represented by the scattered small fish that the fisherman rejects and throws back into the sea's depths. However, when one is able to consolidate and train one's consciousness in the disciplined manner of the wise fisherman, focusing intently on a single well-defined purpose and intended outcome, this unified stream of intention resonates into the quantum field with intensified power. Out of this coherent force field emerge self-ordered synchronicities, serendipitous opportunities, and increasingly structured sequences of events, individuals, and circumstances that coalesce by metaphysical mechanism into an interconnected chain that appears to miraculously draw the intended target goal, or fine large fish, into concrete experiential manifestation. Jesus directly advises the method of meditative contemplation and focused consciousness withdrawal as the most effective technique to enhance one's ability to cultivate this level of intentional clarity. In verse 27, he instructs, "Unless you fast from the world, you shall not find the kingdom. Unless you keep the Sabbath as a Sabbath, you shall not see the Father." The term fasting here doesn't refer strictly to abstaining from food, but rather to the spiritual practice of consciously withdrawing one's energetic investment, attention, and fixation away from the outward world of distractions and sense cravings. Rather than perceiving oneself as a finite individual identification entrapped within the material temporal world, the aspirant is advised to step back into the underlying silently witnessing awareness beyond the constant fluctuations and transient involvements.